and welcome back to lesson 15 of avoiding pitfalls. And in this one we are doing return track automation, and this is another lesson that should be pretty easy to follow without too many pitfalls, but I thought I'd just reiterate some of the best uses for return track automation. So traditionally, return tracks are a great way to add like the same reverb or delay to multiple tracks in different varying amounts, which is really useful, and in the computer world it saves a lot of CPU. But in this lesson we're talking about more creative ways to use return track automation to add some pleasing details to your song in very simple ways. And just like your regular return tracks, you can use, basic delays and reverbs for these little extra details on your sound. And you could also do some really experimental effect chains that can kind of run a sound and spit out something fairly unpredictable. And I think the balance between these is really going to give you some pretty surprising results. Some of the things that I use on these types of return tracks are convolution reverbs, because I could kind of choose my own sounds to use in a reverb type way. For example, if I want to, I could use a human voice as a reverb. I could use any sort of found sounds or something I recorded on my iPhone as a reverb tail of some sort. So there's a lot of really interesting things that you can do with convolution reverbs that can give you some really interesting results. So I'll try like maybe 3 or 4 different tracks with just different convolution reverb sounds. Then other things that I might have is a short reverb or a medium reverb that every once in a while I'll put on, let's say, a snare or a clap sound or a hi-hat sound. Maybe a sound that's going into a breakdown or a sound that's coming out of one. Another great use is taking one word of a voice and running it through like a dub delay or something. So just that one word trails on, but it doesn't affect the rest of your vocal part. Other things I like to do is just get really experimental and make like a real weird effect rack with a number of different effects, like some panning effects. And this way, when you run something through it, it kind of sends things in the stereo spectrum and manipulates the sound where you don't really even know where that sound came from because it sounds so different from the original sound that's being affected. Delayed filters is another great thing that you can do to just kind of create a little bit of head candy for your song. You don't want to overdo it, you don't want to muddy up your song, but just by adding these little details, it makes your overall song just a little less predictable and adds just a little bit of chaos to it if you kind of are running some interesting effects. One thing that you want to make real sure of, though, is on every one of your return tracks, you should put an EQ8 on there and get rid of the low frequencies. In many cases, you could get rid of everything below, for example, 250 hertz. Or you can have kind of a filtered delay that's really just high frequency that kind of gives a little sizzle to things. So you could pull out everything below like 3 kilohertz or something of that sort. So don't get too serious about things. Just kind of enjoy the process. And if you think you're overdoing it, you probably are, and you just will want to kind of cut back. But give yourself some time to kind of experiment and just enjoy the process. I'd say about an hour or so is enough time to kind of do pretty much everything that you would want to do with this return track automation trick. So it's certainly not something that you want to go down too deep of a rabbit hole. So with that, enjoy the lesson, and I'll talk to you guys tomorrow.